Greetings travellers. In this vid I'd like to show you how to make this retro video game arcade machine for your base. You can build one, or if you're a masochist like me, you can even build a whole arcade. So I was building one day and I noticed that the bottom part of the short-range teleporter looked like an upright arcade video game machine that I used to play when I was a wee lad. But as you can see, it's a little bit too small to use in its current form, so we're going to have to use some glitch building to get it to the right scale. So take an object that you can scale up, like this locker, and build one at its maximum size. Then we duplicate the short-range teleporter and store it in the cache by pressing the toggle wire and the toggle build at almost the same time, giving a tiny preference to the toggle wire button. And we complete the glitch by duplicating the large locker and then pressing the toggle wire and build button at almost the same time. Again, slight preference to the toggle wire button. So now the cabinet is at pretty well the right size, but as you can see, we are still kind of hovering over the ground. At this point, let's build a save point and make a manual save. This will be something that we want to do quite regularly during this build because, as I'll talk about later, we have some major issues with cascade deletion and it can be pretty disastrous. Because we want our arcade cabinet to be flush on the floor, we actually have to build the base teleporter below the floor level to hide the base. So build the second lower floor 2 small alloy walls deep below where you want the arcade machine to be. Then use 2 glass panels as your lower flooring. If we duplicate our large teleporter and place it on the lower floor and then put the upper floor back, unfortunately we can see it still sits a little bit too low. So we're going to have to place something on the lower floor that can raise the height of this teleporter just a little bit. I used a slightly shrunk small box and I placed it on the line of the glass. And if we keep the teleporter in snap placement mode, when it's red we can actually see through it. So we guide the teleporter just up the side of the box until it turns green just at the very edge of the top of the box. So just be aware with this build that above and below this room with the arcade, you'll have the other parts of the teleporter. You can either hide them with walls or use them as part of a decoration of another room, but just be careful never to delete them. Our next step is to mark the space where we will build the display for the arcade machine. So build out with a couple of small floor panels and then place a timber wall so it just intersects with the cabinet like this. If it's not half buried in that screen, just go back and move that small box backwards or forwards. And now we can go ahead and use the electrical wiring just to outline where the screen will be. Unfortunately, we can't build directly onto the cabinet because if we try that, the objects will not be able to get close enough and they'll just be hanging in space. So what we're going to do is build the elements of the video game display first, and then at the end we'll put the cabinet back. During that process, you might need to remove 1 or 2 of those wires, but just remember, always leave 2 of the parallel wires there so you can always replace them later. So with the wireframe in place, we can go ahead and delete the short-range teleporter. Unfortunately, we can't use the walls either to create our video game display, because if we delete the wall, often objects that are attached to that wall will also delete. That's what's called cascade deleting. So instead, I'm going to use the lockers, which are much less affected by cascade deletion. Plus they give you a bit of extra freedom when you want to move them backwards and forwards just to make part of an object that you place in the display visible. So then we can use the wall to check if the lockers are in the right position and what is actually visible. But just remember, don't build the wall, just place it there. Just to give a quick example of what I mean when I say cascade deletion, let's have a look at this industrial pallet. As you can see, if I move the locker, the pallet actually doesn't disappear. But if I place it on the wall and then I move that wall, this happens.
No.
And even worse, if you delete the short-range teleporter, a nightmare.
No.